Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Mountain Talk. If you have not been here before, these are sort of our less formal discussions where we kind of just shoot the shit and talk about things that have been on our mind. This video, of course, is going to be about Palworld, a game that has taken the internet completely over as of recent, and rightfully so. It has sold a pretty crazy 8 million copies, I think, in the first 5 days of it being out. And keep in mind, that number is only on Steam, so people are playing the crap out of this game, and not only that, but just on socials, people are talking about it non-stop. Both crazy good things and both crazy bad things. And I wanted to sit down with you guys, talk about all this, because I made a little list of things I wanted to talk about, and there's actually so much to talk about with this game, because it just is a very divisive, people's opinions are very split on this game, so I'm very happy and excited to be talking about this. Now, at the time of recording this, I have a decent amount of hours, but nothing crazy. I probably have around 8 to 9 hours in the game. I'm currently level 15. I'd probably be a lot higher level if I spent all those hours grinding, but a lot of those hours are spent house building, which you might see in the gameplay. I'm not really sure what the gameplay is going to be, but I spent a lot of hours building a house. I love building houses in survival games. I like that aspect, which is not the beauty of the game itself. You know, it really allows you to be creative and free with how you want to play the game. But what most people are really upset about, and what the big discussion about, is the use of assets. I think a lot of people are claiming and feel that Palworld has taken a lot of assets from Pokemon and is using them without, without their, blah blah blah. I'm not a law guy. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you how the law works and what's right and what's wrong. I'm not educated on that kind of stuff. But what I am educated on is just basic ethics of, video game design, morality compass type stuff, and also just how the game plays, and ultimately, does this stuff kind of matter? These are the kind of things I kind of want to talk about in this Mountain Talk. So let's get right into this part of the discussion. And this is a hard thing to talk about, really, because when you get into, getting about plagiarism with art especially, it's just really hard to know where to draw the line and what to call what. I think one that people really fail to remember, not everyone, but a lot of the people who've been vocal on Twitter fail to remember, is that it's hard to create original art in this space, you know what I mean? Have you ever discussed with your friends, new Pokemon ideas, and, you have, 2 or 3, and then you kind of just sit around and, you're like, damn, they've made a lot of Pokemon based on a lot of different things. It's hard to come up with new stuff, and I'm constantly impressed with Game Freak's ability to come up with new stuff. I thought they kind of went through a dry period. Me personally, I kind of didn't like the designs that they did, and I didn't really like the X and Y or the Sun and Moon. I'm blanking on the names. And a couple other games I thought they were lacking, and I was really impressed with the Scarlet and Violet ones. I was really happy, and I was really impressed that they were able to come up with new ideas still. And I have faith that they will going forward. But it's difficult. It's hard. And especially when you're a new game like Palworld and you're basing your monsters off of, certain, things in a mythology or, fantasy, of course they're going to look similar. The one that comes to mind immediately is there is a bug fighting a big black rhinoceros beetle type thing in Palworld. And when I saw it, my first thought is oh, obviously this is Mega Heracross. It's very spot on. But after a while of thinking, it's okay, well, they're basing it off a rhinoceros beetle. It's realistically, how different do I want it to be, The rhinoceros beetle is what it is. They're taking a lot of qualities like that initial horn, and it's just overall bulk. When you're basing it off these things, it's hard to really, it's unfair, I guess, to call it raw plagiarism when they're just based off the same thing. It's not that crazy of an assumption. If you look closely at the gameplay, I kind of did a stupid thing because, I'm a dick. I'm a big Pokemon supporter. I tried to nickname all of my pals after the Pokemon I thought they were the most alike. And it started off as a joke, but it kind of became a pretty interesting exercise because, there were some where it was so quick and so easy. This guy is obviously this, Ecthrier, I don't know how to pronounce his name. That's so clearly Xerneas, it was just easy. But then you get to some others where it's a little bit harder, like Capridy or even Hangyu. I'm trying to think of some of the early Route 1 guys that everyone would know. There's that guy that looks like Snubble. Let's see if I can pull these up. Let's see here. Oh yeah, Lamball. Cativa even looked pretty different. Now it's easy to say, I called my Lamball Wooloo and Cativa Snubble. But to be fair, I think they're different enough. I wouldn't call these plagiarism. Chickpea is literally just a chicken. I think that's what I nicknamed them as well. But with that said, even though there are a lot of original ones, there are very, very many that I think are very clearly ripoffs. There's the one that looks like Eevee. Nightwing is so clearly Star Raptor. It's just hilarious. We had like little like shaman in different types, which I thought was pretty cute. And then like there's just some general like, I don't know, like this is where I think it's hard to call like what's plagiarism and what's not. Because like Gumos or whatever kind of looks like C-Dot and like Ditto, you know what I mean, combined. Maybe they're, you know, maybe they took inspiration, you know, here's this word inspiration again, but, you know, these are the ones where it's like, it's kind of hard to say, and I think it's unfair to immediately call it plagiarism, even though I kind of do think, maybe a little bit, especially with, when we talk about game mechanics too, there's just a lot of general thievery that goes on, I think, on this game dev. But what does this ultimately add up to? You know, what game quality is Palworld? And I've got to say, after the small little bit that I've spent playing it, it's actually pretty damn good. Now, I'm going to compare this game mostly to Scarlet and Violet going forward, because this is the most recent Pokemon game. And, you know, I think it's what most people have most freshly in their minds when having these discussions, and I think that makes the most sense. People want to bring up Arceus too. You can bring up Arceus. Ultimately, it's not that much different. And I think that's what people are really frustrated about now with Pokemon, is just how standard and static the game has become, you know? And this is coming from someone who loves Pokemon and loves the formula. I have so much fun playing every Pokemon game. I buy them all and I play tons of hours in them. But even me, as someone who loves it, I can understand and respect the frustration that other fans have playing the game. Because, you know, it's just such a wealthy, you know, I bring this up a little bit in the Shiny video, but when you're such a wealthy company, you bring in so much profit, you have so much money to work with, your margin of error shrinks a little bit, and people become a bit more expecting of the products that you're going to put out, you know what I mean? I think that's fair, that makes sense. Especially when you talk about Palworld and how much little budget it was given compared to Pokemon. You know, it kind of almost like, for me, makes up that, you know, some of the designs are kind of stolen because they don't have tons of money to throw at artists to design new stuff. And not only that, but just the prestige that Pokemon has, artists want to go there. I'm sure, I would assume they pay pretty good. And even if they didn't pay pretty good, just having that on your resume, I'm sure would be beautiful. Palworld has none of that, you know what I mean? They're playing on hard mode in a weird way to put it. But it's true. And the fact that they're able to still put out a quality game despite that, I think says a ton. I think a scary thing that Game Freak is, got to be thinking about a little bit is like, okay, if Palworld, legally everything gets worked out, everything's all on the up and up. With how much money this game made, I would not be surprised to see a Palworld 2, in the far horizon. And if they have money in that, the game could only go up from there, and the potential is only going to be, higher. The ceiling's going to increase. Now, with that, people are going to start holding it to higher standards, which is maybe the downfall of Pokemon right now. But I think that's a good thing, and, I think that competition for Game Freak is really what Game Freak has needed for a while, because there's been, and I don't even know if Palworld will be competition, it's hyped now, but will it stand the test of time? I don't think so. It's just, can the people that are, complaining and talking, can we make enough noise to where Game Freak hears us? And, that's really the goal, right? But the gameplay is really nice, it feels nice to, have that XP bar, something to work towards. Tech tree is super fun. It makes you feel like you're always making, impactful decisions when you level up. You have to make a choice, am I going to put my upgrade point into this to make my house look better? Or am I going to play a bit more serious, get these items that are going to help make me more efficient? These choices are kind of fun for a player to make, and it allows you to play with different play styles. Probably my favorite thing in the game right now is just how you can make the pals work on your little area. It actually makes it feel good. You feel motivated to upgrade your little pal box, because then you can actually have more workers, which then makes your area more efficient, and that's really awesome. And especially from a survival standpoint, I think a lot of people love that idea of automating stuff. In Minecraft, it's all redstone, all that stuff like that. Even Terraria has, automation, ways to automate stuff. People like that, being able to create these machines that kind of just do all the work for you. And Palworld kind of has that with the pals. It kind of gives you good focus when you're just constantly trying to upgrade your PAL box, and it also kind of provides as a tutorial in a way too, because it keeps you, make sure that you're knocking all these check boxes, making sure you're doing everything that you need to be doing, which is super cool. It makes it really enjoyable for the player, in my opinion. You gotta love the good old Breath of the Wild paraglider that it seems so many games have been implementing, and they even went a step further and said, fuck it, we're gonna do the whole mountain climbing energy system too. The energy pretty much works the same way as Breath of the Wild, the whole climbing. It's even funny, you can, in Breath of the Wild, if you've played the game, you know about when you climb up the mountain and your energy gets low and you kind of just get your butt onto like a little bit of a part of like a cliff edge so you can get your energy to come back up and then continue your climb. I mean, all that stuff, it works here in Palworld, which is pretty hilarious. But it feels good, you know, I like the way it feels. You know, it's weird. You have to battle in your mind. It's like, obviously this thing is stolen, but it's like also, you know, quote unquote, you just call it inspiration. It was inspired by Breath of the Wild, okay, you know? And what really matters, at least to me, is what is the final product. And the final product, it's decent. It is good. I think it's valid of a little bit of thievery, maybe. With that said, though, it is pretty shameful how much stuff is stolen. It just feels a little bit unnecessary to it, even to a certain extent. Like, the technology tree UI is so arc. Like, you could have just at least made it a different color, or it's just so easy to make it look different. You could even have, like, the layout be the same, but just change the way it looks a little bit. It's actually crazy that they can kind of just get away with that. But, again, it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, just give Arc the right to blue fucking UI? Like, it doesn't work like that. So it's very slippery slope, and they've played the game well. I can't be mad at it. But you go over and you look at like these like little boss arenas, and then you go and play Elden Ring, and you look at those little boss arenas, and it's just like, what? Like, what? It's just crazy. It's baffling. It actually is baffling. I even saw like a tree on. Oh man, there was a YouTuber that put out a really good. I'll link it here. But they just put out a really good video, which is like all these similarities, and it's like, it's crazy. It's actually crazy how spot on some of the things are that they've taken inspiration from. Now, I'm going to say something that is completely unfair to the game dev of Palworld, and I'm going to admit that before I say it. But when you do stuff like this, to me, it really comes off as making a product to make money rather than a product that you really care about. And, you know, to a lot of people, and maybe to everyone, that's a stupid thing to say, because realistically, it's like, that's the point, right? Every game that's put out is made to make money, right? The guy wants to make money so that he can live and eat food and all that stuff, right? But there's just a different level with this. When you just see this game, you know, it takes such a popular concept like Pokemon and give it guns, and it's taking all the stuff from other games, the lack of creativity and imagination from the dev. It just makes it feel like this was something that was pumped out purely just to make money. And I think that just doesn't sit right with a lot of people, and I think that's why a lot of people are so quick to get upset about this game. Because, it just feels disingenuous. But again, it's unfair to say that, because we don't know what the dev's thought process was. Maybe he did put a lot of love and care into it, or maybe it started off as a money project, and as he kind of got deeper and deeper into it, he kind of fell in love with it, and you know what I mean? And also, ultimately, it doesn't fucking matter if the person who made it cares about it or not. What really matters is the end product. As a consumer, that's what they're going to care about always, is the end product. So I guess it's just kind of waffling from someone who also likes to do game dev and kind of sees the other side of it, but I don't know. I'm kind of curious what you guys have to say about that part, because while I do think it's unfair to make that claim, it's really how I feel when I see this game. It just comes off as a game that was purely made as a product rather than, just something with, love put into it. Like Hollow Knight is a game we recently played on this channel. That was a game that I felt like, that's just the difference, right? There's love put into that. There's care put into that. You know what I mean? The guy who made that was probably excited to show that to his family. The Palworld's probably the same, I'm sure, but it's just a different level of passion, I think, that you can really feel in these games. Maybe that's silly, maybe that's not. Despite this, though, I think if you are a fan of Pokemon, you should want Palworld to do well. I genuinely do think that. I said this a little bit before, but Game Freak, more than anything, needs competition. They need to feel a little bit of pressure because, again, this is another maybe offensive claim, so I'll admit that, but it just feels like Game Freak doesn't care anymore. It just feels like they have become like they know that people are going to eat up whatever they put out. Maybe not so much the devs, but the marketing team, whoever's pushing them out, the game's out before they're really complete, before they're ready. These people are driving me bonkers, you know what I mean? Whichever higher up thinks it's okay to drop a game at 15 frames on the Switch, it's crazy to me. you know, there's so many beautiful. We're not gonna go down this rabbit hole. Actually, I'm gonna deny it. But Pokemon, in general, needs to be held to a higher standard for how much money it brings in, for how many people play it, for being literally the reason why people buy Switches. A lot of people, you know, Breath of the Wild is one of those games where people bought Switches to play it. Pokemon is very much the same way. Mario is the same way. You just can't go half-ass on these games, man, especially the mainline ones. If you want to half-ass, you know, some experimental BS or, you know, just whatever, something new, something random, I'm down for that. These mainline games need to be held to a higher standard, and competition is going to help that and make sure that that happens more often, which is important. I personally think that a lot of people are choosing to be very vocal about their happiness with Palworld, mostly in part because of their dissatisfaction with Pokemon currently, you know what I mean? You don't see too many people out there saying, wow, Palworld is such a great game because X, X, and X. It's, you know, it's a lot of comparison. It's a lot of, oh, Palworld does this better than Pokemon, or Palworld is doing this so much better than Pokemon. It's always the comparison, and I think that really comes from people's frustration with current Pokemon. You know, when Scarlet and Violet first dropped, people were very vocal about how unhappy they were with the formula and how just static it was. People crave something new, and Palworld is that, you know? Could you imagine a game like Palworld, but with Pokemon's funding and with Pokemon, just Pokemon, you know what I mean, instead of pals, and, you know, just having, you know, people often say, you know, this is what Arceus should have been, you know, Arceus should have had this level of, you know, chopping up some pals, or chopping up Pokemon, maybe putting them into a rice bowl or whatever, and Scarlet and Violet has touched on that a little bit with some of their food options, you know, they've made it very clear that we eat the Pokemon. I would love to see a more primal version, maybe even geared towards older audiences. Because I think really it is the older audiences that are the most frustrated with how complacent Pokemon's been in later years. People just want something fresh. They've been playing the same game for literally over 20 years now. I think clearly a Leaf Green and Fire Red, as the day I'm recording this, turned 20 today, which is insanity. People are tired of the formula. They want something new. And just with how much resources Pokemon Company has available, I would just love to see them branch out and get more experimental and not be afraid to take risks, which I understand is easier said than done. A company like Pokemon, a company like Nintendo, they don't really get to take risks, you know. When they put out a game and it's bad, people go hard on them and, you know, disrespect them. Mario has a great system where it's like Mario are the main lines and they have like their Wario or Luigi goofball games, and people kind of are able to treat those games a little less seriously. And Pokemon has that too, right? With like Pokemon Ranger and Mystery Dungeon, people don't really take those games as seriously, so you could use those moments to experiment. I think the Legends series is going to be a great way for them to do that if they want to in the future. And I'm kind of curious, like, do you guys think there's any possibility of like a Pokemon world dropping? I don't think so. But it's interesting that this game has done so well and people have enjoyed it so much. I just feel like Pokemon needs to... It would be such a missed opportunity for them to not realize that people want something new, something like this, you know? And Palworld is such a mediocre game. I apologize to anyone who loves it, I'm sorry, but I think personally it's just such a medium level game. But people, you know, people are happy to rate a 6 out of 10 game and turn it into an 8 because they're comparing it to a 4, you know? When you compare a 6 to a 4, the 6 all of a sudden feels like an 8. And that's how I feel like people have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Even though I think Scarlet and Violet is a better game than Palworld, you know, for me that's a no-brainer. I actually wouldn't judge someone who says that they like Palworld more. They think Palworld's more engaging, more fun. There's simply more to do, and that's kind of undeniable, you know. In Pokemon, what do? You run around, you catch Pokemon, and you do the gym battles. You know, I do self-imposed stuff where I like to get the shiny charm, because I think that makes the game a lot more fun, but if you're not doing stuff like that, the game is pretty bland, and there's not a lot to do, admittedly. But when you look at Palworld, there's a lot to do. There's bosses, there's tech trees, there's leveling, there's automation in the base, there's base crafting. I didn't even talk about the base crafting. You can get lost in hours and hours and hours of base crafting. You know, people are showing off their builds on Twitter and stuff like that. It's a great way to just promote the game, too. There's just so much to do in Palworld when you compare it to a mainline Pokemon game. So it's hard to say that people who prefer that experience are wrong. It's kind of impossible, actually. It is its own game in its own right, and that's why I don't think just stealing the designs, stealing a couple mechanics here and there, are enough to call it a horrible Pokemon ripoff. Realistically, the gameplay is nothing like it. The Pokemon similarities really do stop at the pals, the Pokemon. With that said, there's even shiny pals, which is so goddamn shameless. But there are not evolutions, which is a really big bummer because evolutions are really my favorite thing about Pokemon, I think, really. I love the evolutions, but if you look at the pals, there's some sneaky evolutions. Even though they don't directly evolve, like the penguin guy and like Penking, get out of here, bro. That's an evolution. And I'm sure there's some other ones too, but yeah, man. So yeah, Palworld is definitely one hell of a game. It's very interesting, and people sure as hell have opinions about it. I would love to hear what your guys' opinions are. What do you think about Palworld? Should it burn to the ground? Should the Japanese company, should Pokemon, I don't know why I call them the Japanese company, should Pokemon put their clamps on them and tie them down? One other thing I didn't realize is Palworld was made in Japan, and I thought it was made in America, and maybe that was why they were able to like get away with it so well. But they're in the Pokemon company's back door. So if the Pokemon company wants to, do legal action, they will, and they know their rights better than anyone. Nintendo has a good history of not being afraid to take down what they want to take down. You know what I mean? So I would not try to white knight for Pokemon and freak out. They know what they're doing. They have a good grasp of their company, especially when it comes to who's dipping their hands into their wallet. So definitely, if you're freaking out on Twitter trying to white knight for the game, I would relax. And also, if you're a diehard Palworld supporter, F you, Pokemon's better. Oh, actually, before I do the outro, one other thing I wanted to talk about too is the words. I ultimately think the Palworld, oh my god, I can't do words. I ultimately think the power is in Game Freak's hands. I really do think that, because ultimately people want Pokemon. They really do. And, Palworld is scratching that creative Pokemon itch that I think a lot of people have. But at the end of the day, if Game Freak comes out with a better product, people are going to gravitate towards that anyways. People are going to go for the bigger name. So I just am curious to see, does Game Freak even give a shit? Because if they do, and, they kind of kick it into gear, we could do some awesome things coming forward in the future. I'm a little bit skeptical if that's going to happen. I'm not really sure if I have that much faith in Pokemon wanting to take any risks. Ultimately, like I said, I think they know that people are going to buy their game no matter what, and whether Palworld does good or bad, it probably will not matter too much. And I'm curious to see if there's going to be a Palworld 2. Maybe if it sticks around for long enough, it could start to cause a problem for them, but as of now, my hopes are low. But, oh man. Like I said, I'm very curious what you guys have to think about this. What are your opinions on the Palworld versus Pokemon debate? Where do you stand? Is it morally right? Is it wrong? I don't know. I'm not equipped to decide, but I am equipped to talk about it and just, say random ass bullshit. So I'm glad that you were here to listen to it. And please, please, please let me hear your opinion. If you enjoyed this, please listen to the next one. Feel free to comment, because I do respond to all comments. And I will see you guys all in the next one. Goodbye.